All right. All right. I think we're going. Let's make sure the sound's good. Everything's good. Hopefully somebody let me know if you can hear me okay, if I'm sounding good. I forgot to check to make sure my microphone was set up correctly before, so we'll see. Let's find out here real quick. I don't know. Well, we'll let you guys tell me if I sound good or not. So anyway, while we're getting into this and I'm waiting on somebody to respond to that, we'll just get the disclaimers out of the way. This is a weekly live broadcast. Generally, I'm here every Thursday night, 7 o'clock Central. Yeah, let's see. I'm sorry. and generally, I'm here every Thursday night, 7 o'clock Central, unless something gets in the way. Sometimes I can't make it, but usually I'm here. Sound is good. Somebody responded good. Thank you. I appreciate it. What else was I going to say? Okay. I lost my train of thought. Okay. Back to it. This is not really a planned out, like I don't have a topic planned or anything. This is just an opportunity to interact with you guys. So I do my best to respond to all the chat that comes in during the live chat itself. I have not been good at answering comments lately. I see them come in and I'm so busy, so many things going on. I just haven't had time. And well, I've had some time. I've just kind of not made time, I guess. I don't have a good excuse. Just haven't been good about doing it, trying to talk myself into getting back into it, developing that routine again. I kind of got out of my routine. So, if you have a question that's come up, this is a really good place to ask it so you'll get an answer. The only things I ask is be polite, be family friendly. Don't be cussing anybody. Don't be calling anybody names. We can have disagreements. We don't have to be mean about it. So let's get into it. We've got 12 gauge here. Hello to you from Montana View, Arkansas, or Mountain View, Arkansas. There we go. Get that right. Jasmine Bass is here. Good to see you, Jasmine. Thanks for joining. Jeff Martin, hello to you. Howdy to you. Adirondack Quail and Duck Ranch. Hang on, let me see what that notification was. Nothing important. We can wait on. Jasmine says, I got 100 4.5-week-old quail. I guess that's 4.5-week-old quail babies outside in their grow out pens. Finally, LOL. So far, everyone is doing really well in the transition, and my house smells better again. Yeah, I know that feeling. I just went through that about 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. And yeah, they're all doing well too. Justin says, hello from Iowa. I'm still having problems with my does getting bred, and I don't know what to do. Yeah, that's a tough one. Sorry, looking at a few more comments. Yeah, I don't know exactly what problems you're having with your does. My guess is they're not lifting for the buck. They're not letting him mount and do his job. So, I mean, that's a pretty common issue you're going to run into with rabbits, especially first-time mothers. Sometimes you find a rabbit, though, that's just never really wants to breed, is always reluctant to do it. So there are a couple of things that you can do, and I don't know if you've heard this before. You're saying still have problems. So it may have been that you were in last week's live broadcast because we talked about it. We talk about it in about every live broadcast, but it's a pretty common thing that comes up. So if you're having issues getting your doe to lift for the buck, there are a few things that you can do. One of them is be consistent. Take her in the morning, put her in with the buck for 15 minutes. If she doesn't lift, take her out, put her back in her cage, do it again that evening, do it again the next morning, the next evening, the next morning, the next evening. So usually after about 4 or 5 tries, she'll go ahead and lift for the buck. You can try adding light, get the light up to about 14 hours a day. That can help put the does in the mood a little bit. The other thing that you can do that people swear by is take her, put her in a pet carrier, put her in your car, drive her around the block a few times, take her back, put her in with the buck. I don't know why that would work, but everybody swears that it does. So, those are a few things that you can try to get her to breed. You can always resort if you need to force breeding, which would be like holding the doe steady and putting your hand underneath her and manually lifting her up for the buck. I find that difficult to do sometimes. I've only tried it a couple of times, and a lot of times the bucks don't want to, they get shy whenever you're doing that. You can't blame them. It's a little bit awkward, a little bit weird. But that is something that you can try to do. I don't know that it's really a great practice. I don't know how I feel about it, honestly, like force breeding them. It just seems kind of wrong in a way, but it is something you can do if you need to. So hopefully that kind of helps you out a little bit. All right. Where are we at here? Jesse says, good evening, everyone. We had a heat wave here in Iowa. It hit 34 today. It's been negative temps the last week. Oh, that sucks. It's been pretty cold here this week, down to the middle teens, something like that. Didn't get above freezing yesterday. Today was better. It was like 40, 45 degrees, something like that. We're supposed to be in the 50s by the weekend and 60 on Monday. So looks pretty good, honestly. It could be a lot worse. Justin says, when you make your quail feeders, how big should the holes be? People ask me that. I don't know that I measure them. I mean, yay big around, just big enough for a quail to stick their head through. That's probably an inch and a half, maybe something like that. I don't know. I don't ever measure it. I just cut a hole in it. And the way I figure it is if it's not big enough, if they're having a hard time getting their head through it, I can cut it bigger. So I'm kind of, I don't really tend to worry. I tend to do things kind of, I guess, rednecked, a little bit. So I just take my pocket knife out, cut a hole in the deal, and there we go, done. Sometimes I get them a little too big, and I've had birds. I had holes in this feeder that I made. I just made a feeder last week 2 weeks ago when I moved the baby quail out to the outside hutch when they were 4.5 weeks old or so. And I made the holes I thought about that big around, which is, I don't know, you can't see that on screen. I don't know how big that is. An inch and a half, 2 inches or something like that. And for the first couple of days, I kept finding birds inside the feeder. They were going through the holes. I didn't think it was hardly big enough for them to get their head through, and they were getting their whole body inside. So, I don't know that it matters how big you actually make the holes if it's that big of a concern, but hopefully that helps a little bit. Hey, Jupiter's here. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm doing well. Hopefully you are too. Tracy from Tennessee, or no, Texas. Sorry. Tennessee. Ooh, it's probably an insult to you, wasn't it? So from North Texas, good to see you, Tracy. Was it Genuine Toe Tag? Says hello on from Oregon. Good to see you. Verna's here. Hey, Verna, good to see you. Thanks for joining. And Peg from California. Hello to you. Catherine from Louisiana. Let's see. Jupiter goes on to say, I got my mortgage lifter tomato seeds in the mail today. You recommended them like 2 years ago, but I'm finally going to try them. Looking forward to starting indoors in a few short weeks. Yeah, I do like mortgage lifter reds. They're a good tomato. They taste really good. Now, they are an heirloom tomato. They're not a hybrid, so they don't have all the, they're maybe a little bit harder to grow than what a hybrid would be. Let me grab a drink here. If you don't know the difference, hybrid tomatoes generally are bred. They're a crossbreed between different tomato plants. So the difference between hybrid and heirloom basically is, there are a few other differences. I think heirlooms have to be 40 years or 30 years old. I don't know, something like that to be considered an heirloom. But really what heirloom and hybrid means is that if you save the seeds from an heirloom tomato or heirloom plant of any kind, then when you plant those again, you'll get the exact same plant. Whereas if you do that with a hybrid, you just don't know. You're going to get a mix. You don't know what you're going to get. It's not going to be true to the parent necessarily. So you might have like a Better Boy hybrid tomato and you save the seeds and you plant it. You're not necessarily going to get a Better Boy hybrid tomato again. You're going to get something else. And it may grow fine. It may grow crazy little tiny tomatoes. It may not produce fruit at all. It may do, you never know. So that's what an heirloom is. But heirloom also, I should say hybrids for the most part have been bred crossbreeds of certain plants to prevent disease or to prevent cracking or to prevent, whatever kinds of problems that you generally have with like some of the heirloom tomatoes or heirloom fruits of any kind. Tomatoes would be like blight and like cracking of the skin, those kinds of things. So your heirlooms are going to be a little more susceptible to those kinds of things. Mortgage lifter reds have always done pretty good for me, but you do want to keep an eye on if you start getting blight on your tomatoes. I don't know if you know how to look for that, but basically you start getting leaves on the bottom. It'll usually start at the bottom. And it usually happens whenever you have like overly wet conditions in the early spring. So if you do start noticing that on the leaves on the bottom, they start getting yellow and turning and, pull them off before they affect the whole plant. You should be fine. That's just a couple of tips that from me. So you may find that they're not quite as productive as some of the hybrids out there as well. But to me, they've always worked really, really well. So I really like them quite a bit. There's a great story behind the mortgage lifter red, too. There was a guy, Radiator Charlie, I think is what they called him, that back in the 40s or 50s, maybe, I don't know when it was. It was a long time ago, before I was born. He developed the mortgage lifter red, and he paid off his, I don't know, $4,000 mortgage or whatever by selling seedlings for like $1 a piece. So pretty good story there. I like it. All right. Entire population of Australia is here. Hello to everyone, he says. Hello to you too. I guess I don't know. He or she, either way. Hello, you say. Jennifer says, good evening to all. Good evening to you, Jennifer. Katrina, hello to everyone from Gilroy, California. Hello to you too. Verna says, Chris, on the video about JMM and JP, or are they both from the same breeder? JMM and J. Oh, I saw your comment coming through on that on email, talking about the jumbo meat makers and the jumbo pharaohs, where I was trying to compare the difference from them. I honestly don't remember where I got those from. All of them anyway. So I can't say. I don't think they were from the same breeder. I think they were from different breeders, but I really don't know. I can't remember. That's been a long time ago. Kathleen says, is alfalfa good for rabbits? And is Timothy hay good for the garden? Yeah, alfalfa is good for rabbits. I mean, if you use rabbit pellets, they're almost always primarily alfalfa. So a lot of people use Timothy hay because there is a little bit of a concern if you overfeed alfalfa that it can lead to too much calcium in the rabbit's diet. What you're going to notice is they expel that in their urine. So you'll often see like a white kind of a milky looking substance in their urine. That's usually extra calcium that they're expelling from their body that they've just had too much calcium. Now, excuse me, if they get way too much calcium all the time, then yeah, that can lead to some kinds of issues with them. I don't know that it's a big concern. So if you feed alfalfa hay to your rabbits, it's fine. It's not really something to worry about too much. But if you can get Timothy hay, it probably is better to feed Timothy hay. If you're going to feed hay, you don't necessarily have to feed hay. It is good for them. It does have some long fiber to it and stuff like that, but they'll do fine without it if you don't want to feed them hay. If you do, it's probably good to feed a Timothy hay because the pellets are primarily alfalfa. Now, as far as it good for the garden, yeah, any organic matter for the most part is good for your garden. The thing you're going to have to worry about with hay, though, and it's not necessarily a huge issue, but hay has seeds in it. So if you put that on your garden and it's not been composted or something like that first, then there's a good chance you're going to get hay sprouting in your garden in the spring. It's usually pretty easy to pull out. It's not like weeds where they root really deep and they're hard to get out and they come back. It's usually pretty easy to pull. You just go through and just pull it right out, no problem. But it is something, I mean, just to be aware of, that's probably going to happen if you throw a bunch of hay on your garden. I've used straw and hay on my garden for mulch. I did it for years and years and years, and it works really, really well. But again, it is, you do get some, hay that sprouts here and there. All right. Yeah, Jasmine's saying, going to clean out the quail room, in quotes, and get the seed starting shelves up and running for the future garden plants. Are you planning to grow anything special for the quail or future rabbits? I have a list. LOL. No, I don't necessarily. Yeah, I've got to start getting my seed planting stuff. I got to order some seeds. I don't think I have any tomato seeds. I have other seeds, but I don't know that I have tomatoes. So, but I got the Baker Creek catalog in, so I got a perfect place to choose seeds from. And we've also got somebody in the community here that sells seeds on Amazon, so I may look into that too. But no, I don't have anything planned to grow specifically for the quail or specifically for the rabbits. I do tend to give them a few scraps of garden stuff here and there, but I don't grow. It's just too much work for me to try to grow to produce for them. Rabbits especially, I'm looking for fast grow out rates with my rabbits. And if you want the fastest grow out rate possible with your rabbits, you're going to be feeding them primarily a pellet diet, not really much of anything else. But if you're good with letting them grow out for a little while longer and you want to grow fodder and things like that, it's fine to go ahead and feed them that and let them grow out a little bit slower. The one thing I will say is that if you're talking about like garden vegetables, for the most part, those should be treats. Those are not like part of their main diet. It shouldn't be their main diet. It should be treats. Most of that stuff's pretty high in sugar. It's just not part of the normal everyday diet of those animals. So it shouldn't be something you plan that way. But, things like barley and wheat and that kind of stuff, those are great fodder plants to grow. And you can feed those as a primary diet to your rabbits. Quail will eat some of those kinds of things, but they really need a varied. Quail are kind of omnivores, so they need more like insect and all that kind of stuff. And that's why I feed primarily I give them treats every once in a while from the garden, a cucumber or a piece of squash or something like that. But for the most part, I feed them just a game bird starter because it's got all that built into that they need. And I don't have to worry about figuring it out on my own. Kathleen wants to know what I feed my rabbits. Well, I think I kind of went through that, didn't I? But I'll go through it again. I feed them a rabbit pellet. I like a high protein, 19% is what I feed. So it's a high protein rabbit pellet, and that's pretty much it. Some Timothy hay, they get some of that, but other than that, that's it. I don't really feed them anything different. 12 Gauge wants to know, I'd like to know the person that is the first that figured out about driving their female rabbit around and put them in the mood. Yeah, I don't know who it was. Honestly, I don't even know why it would work. Hey, we got a super chat. I completely missed it, didn't I? A $2 super chat from Kilgore Trout. Thank you so much, Kilgore Trout. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know who figured that out. How they figured it out, I have no idea. I still don't even know why it would work. It doesn't make any sense to me, but people swear by it. So Verna ordered some mustard greens for the quail. Okay. Oh my gosh, that's got to be Lars, right? I haven't seen you in a while, Lars, with 169 Danish crown, I believe is what that is, super chat. Thank you so much. I knew when it came through as DKK, Danish crown or whatever, that it was Lars. I had to be. Good to see you back, man. Thanks for joining. I appreciate it. Lars is always so generous. He comes in here and just throws some money at me and never asks for anything, just throws some money at me. But you don't have to do that. You can always just come in and say hi and stuff. We'd be fine with that. Tony from Toronto, good to see you. Tracy says, I read that as armadillos. No, I just picked armloads of dry standing Johnson grass and gave it to my rabbits. They went crazy over this. I hate it, but it grows everywhere on my property. Yeah, I imagine it does. One thing to be careful of is don't give them too much of that if that's not part of their normal diet, if they're not acclimated to it. Quick diet changes in rabbits can be pretty rough on them. It can cause diarrhea. Rabbits with diarrhea don't last very long. So, that I would say give it to them in small amounts until, transition slowly. You don't want to just throw handfuls of it in there at once if they're not used to eating it on a regular basis. I don't know that we have Johnson grass here. We have Bermuda grass, and it's terrible stuff. Sage Wolf, hello to you. Jasmine says, I think my feeder holes are 1 1/4 inch. That sounds about right. That's probably a good size for quail feeders. Katrina, I just put a nest box in with tortellini. Hopefully babies by the end of the weekend. The other babies are away from the 3 does and are almost 6 to 7 weeks old, depending on the litter. Everyone is good. Well, awesome. So, good luck. Hopefully you do have babies by the weekend, and hopefully they all continue to do really well. I'm glad to hear that they are so far. Verna says she gives her quail mini cucumbers, and they go crazy over them. Yeah, mine like cucumbers too. They like them quite a bit. Hello to you, Freedom from Quail. Justin McCurry says, thank you. You're absolutely welcome. I've kind of forgotten what I answered for you, Justin. I'm kind of scrolling back up to see what it was, but the size of the quail feeder holes. You're welcome. And thanks to Jasmine for chiming in on that one as well. Justin says, do you know anything about garden seeds? When I plant from seeds, they grow long and skinny and die. Yeah, I can tell you what that issue is. It's probably light or lack thereof. That's called leggy. Getting leggy is what we call it in the gardening world, I guess. I don't know. That sounded weird. You get what I'm saying, but yeah. So what's happening is they're reaching for light because they don't have enough light. You need to have some kind of light on your plants. We kind of talked about this a little bit last week, but we can go through it again real quick because it is that time of year. It's almost time to start getting your seeds going. What I use, and you can kind of see my seed starting shelf behind me. I've got a couple of shop lights. I've got 2 sets of shop lights. Those are like $15 shop lights you buy at any hardware store. And I've got 2 of them so I can expand along a wider tray. So when I put my trays under them, it's not just over the center of the tray. It can cover the entire tray. And what you're going to want to look for is light bulbs that are primarily in the 6,500 Kelvin rating. Let me grab a bulb real quick. We did this last week. We'll do it again this week. We've got a bulb hiding back here. There we go. So when you look at bulbs in the in the hardware store or wherever you get your light bulbs, big box stores, Lowe's, any of those places, it's going to have, and you probably can't read that. I don't think it's going to show up on camera. Maybe it does. It's got a Kelvin rating right there. So this one is a 6,500 Kelvin. So this is going to be primarily daylight spectrum, and that's a good spectrum to use. Hang on. Is this one also? I've forgotten what Kelvin this is, but I use two different types of bulbs. I use I'm trying to figure out what Kelvin rating this is. This is a 3,000 Kelvin rating. So this is a warmer, more of a reddish, orangish kind of light, whereas the other one's more of a bluer, whiter type of light. And I like to use one of each in each fixture. So a warm bulb and a cool bulb in each fixture. But you could get away with two bulbs that are 6,500 Kelvin. It'd be fine. Hang on. Or, of course, you could invest in a more expensive grow light if you wanted to. But the key is, now these bulbs are not incredibly bright. They're going to look bright to you, but they're nowhere near as bright as the sun. So you need to have these bulbs very close to the top of your plants, like almost touching them. Now, I've got mine rigged up on chains so I can lift them up as the plants start to grow. You don't really want your plants touching the light, but I mean, all but like with an inch or two of that. And you need to make sure you cover them with light. If I just had one row of lights, one shop bulb, and I have a plant tray that's this wide, and that shop bulb only covers the middle half of it, all my plants are going to grow towards the center of that. And you don't want that. You want them to grow straight up. So you need to have spread out, much light as you can. Some people will wrap the walls with foil and the sides with foil to reflect the light back in. But you need a lot of light because you can't produce anywhere near enough light to, you can't have that light 4 feet away from them. It's just not a powerful enough light. There are grow lights out there that will do that will grow your plants just fine without having to have it quite as close, but they're much, much more expensive. And, excuse me, I'm having a hard time keeping my voice. Feel like I'm running out of voice. You're going to have, I don't know that they're worth it. If you're just looking at starting seeds for the spring, if you're wanting to grow plants indoors all the time, then yeah, it may be worth investing in those, but you're looking at several $100s at the cheapest probably to get those lights. And they're usually not very big. So you end up having to invest in several of them. And I find the shop lights, they work just fine. But again, super close to your plants. I mean, you need them right above it. Hopefully that kind of helps you out with that. But I can almost guarantee that's your problem. Don't try to just get away with putting them in a south-facing window or something like that. It won't work. And what you're going to end up is plants like yours that get really tall and really thin, and then they fall over because they're too weak to hold themselves up. All right, Boris, hello to you. Good to see you. Everyday Oil says, any advice on removing murderous Cooper hawk who is harassing my suburbs? Oh, man, I wish I did have good advice on that. I had a hawk. It wasn't a Cooper's hawk. I can't remember what kind of hawk they called it. But, I have hawks that nest in my backyard. They come back every year. So when the babies leave the nest at first, they look like full-grown hawks, but they're young. They do try to kind of tend to go towards the quail hutch. They see the quail there. But so far, they haven't been able to get into it, and they usually give up after a couple of days and just move on. So it's not a real issue for me. But I don't have a good suggestion. It's technically illegal to, shoot the bird or something like that. I think there are some stipulations. If it's threatening your livestock or something like that, you can do it. What you might try to do is contact your local conservation department if you are having problems with it. Talk to them and see what options that they have there that you might be able to do. They may have some, some kind of, I don't know, some kind of like a scarecrow type thing that you could put up. It wouldn't be a scarecrow, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't remember what that's called, but a deterrent of some kind, like for, like small game or small birds that are like in your gardens and stuff, owl decoys will kind of keep them away because owls eat small birds. I don't think there's anything that eats hawks there's plenty of things that would. Don't know that there's anything that does on a regular basis though. So I'm sorry, I don't have a good solution for that. I have heard stories about hanging up like CDs. Do they still make CDs? I still have some, but anyway, CDs, just hang them from string where they spin in the wind and they reflect the light and it throws them off. I don't know if that actually works or not, but I've heard people talk about doing things like that. My thought is that if it's really going to bother the hawk, it's probably going to bother my birds as well. So I don't know that I'd want to do that, but who knows? It's a possibility. Jennifer says, I use a step drill and make the holes 1 3/8 inch in size. Yeah, that probably works out pretty well. I don't even measure. I don't draw. I mean, I just take my pocket knife out and cut a hole in it. That's what I do. Sometimes the holes end up bigger because when I cut the initial hole, it's all jagged and I'm afraid they're going to cut themselves on it. So I end up, by cleaning it up, I end up making it a lot bigger than I intended to initially. It's probably not the best method. I bet your method works way better, but that's the way I do it. Jasmine says, Chris, have you tried out White Harvest Seed Company seeds? They're a family-owned company in Missouri. I think they're West Hartville, maybe. Mike and his family are great, and the seeds are high quality. I haven't. I'm not familiar with them. Let me type this in. White. I got to look back at the comments, see what you said. White Harvest Seed Company, huh? White Harvest Seed Company. I'll have to check them out. Take a look here real quick. You got me looking at seeds. I'm going to have a hard time getting back to the live broadcast. They have heirloom seeds. Let's see what they have. Just a quick glance. Tomatoes. They have Arkansas Travelers. Amish Paste. Amish Paste is my favorite paste tomato. A beefsteak red tomato. I don't know what kind it is. German Pink. I've tried those. Those are okay. I don't care for them that much. Red Cherry Mountain Princess Red. Certified organic. Interesting. Yeah, looks like they have pretty good prices. We got Cherokee Purple. Cherokee Purple's probably everybody's favorite heirloom tomato, right? Not mine, actually. I don't really care for them. I don't think they're all that good. I think Cherokee Purple's, I don't know, everybody raves about them and talks about how great they are. And to me, they were just okay. They weren't really great. Jasmine says, do you use worm castings or fish emulsion as fertilizer on the garden or make compost tea? Not usually. I mean, I have before used not fish emulsion, but it would be a good fertilizer. What I generally usually do is just throw some compost on it. I try to do it in the fall or the winter time, but a lot of the times I just end up doing it right before I plant or maybe a month before I plant. It really is best to do it in the fall. It's just what happens in the fall is hunting season comes up. So every weekend I'm busy hunting, don't have time to work on the garden. And then it's just too darn cold to do it most of the winter. But anyway, what I usually do is just throw compost on there, rabbit manure, sometimes some just like straw or hay or something like that. Grass clippings even, I try not to use the Bermuda grass clippings. I'll compost my cut grass clippings down, make sure they're dead before I throw them on, but just organic matter. Throw that on the garden, cover it up. I use a weed fabric over my garden to keep the weeds down. It basically acts as a top mulch. And then, so it's just organic matter underneath that. Compost, manure. Well, I already went through the list. You kind of get it. But I don't do any fertilizing throughout the year. I find that works. That's enough. I don't till my garden either. I just throw the stuff on there, let the worms till it in themselves. And it works pretty well. Verna says, I have sweet potatoes set for slips, even if I can't get can't plant the potatoes. The greens are good for you and the animals. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Not sure why you can't plant. I think you live in an apartment, don't you? So you can't plant the potatoes because you don't have anywhere to plant them. I guess you could. I mean, you could work out some kind of indoor planting thing, but you're going to need some, maybe not full spectrum, but some pretty varied spectrum lighting that would get pretty expensive. But yeah. No problem with just growing the greens either. Nothing wrong with that. Sorry, something's biting the back of my leg or something. It itches. Jerry says, howdy from South Central Missouri. Hello to you. Another show me stater here. Googbot. I don't know what that's a hard username to say. But anyway, it says, my rabbits never eat hay. How do I get them to eat it? Well, you don't need to necessarily. If they don't want to eat it, there's no reason they have to eat it. seems like you're kind of fighting a battle that doesn't need to be fought. If they don't want to eat the hay, don't give them hay. Just let them eat the pellets. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you really want them to eat the hay for some reason, you think they need to be eating it, cut back on their pellets. They'll start eating the hay. But again, it's not a necessity. They don't have to. Jasmine says, me too, Verna, about growing the sweet potato slips. Says, after your tip about the sweet potato vines being good fodder for the animals, I made sure to add plenty of spot to grow excess for the farm babies. Nice. Glenn says, hello from Royal Heights, 50 Mile Shire. Royal Heights. Are you talking Royal Heights like here locally? Probably. We have a Royal Heights neighborhood, and I bet that's who it is. Glenn. Yep. Says, hello from Royal Heights. My 50 Mile Shire eggs hatching tomorrow. Thanks for advising. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Good luck with the hatch. I hope it goes well. Verna tells tell Jasmine, don't forget to eat your share too. Brady says, God bless from the snowbanks in Maine. Oh, I don't envy you. We had snow here last night, actually, but you had to kind of be outside really paying attention to know it was snowing. It didn't accumulate. It wasn't a big deal at all. Jeff Martin is telling everybody to give a thumbs up. Says, thumbs up, people. Chris is giving some spot-on advice. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate that. Brady says, I sell giant pumpkin seeds. I grew a 300-pound pumpkin for my rabbits in 2021. 300-pound. Good grief, that's huge. Jasmine got the thumbs up in. Thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate that. I've never actually grown pumpkins. I've tried to grow watermelon a few times and got a couple. I do pretty good with cantaloupe, but I don't really grow cantaloupe anymore. I'll tell you why. I like cantaloupe quite a bit, but I don't grow it because my problem is that cantaloupe it all comes ripe at the same time. It's like all of a sudden you have like 30 cantaloupe ripe, and I can't eat 30 cantaloupe, and there's no real good way to preserve it. So I just don't bother growing it. And if I want a cantaloupe, I just go down and buy one for $1 or so, and farmers markets for a couple of bucks, So it's just not worth it to me. Same thing with watermelon. Well, actually, with watermelon, I don't really like watermelon that much. My wife likes it quite a bit, but it takes up so much room in the garden. I just don't bother growing it. We just buy one every once in a while when she wants one. I don't really eat the stuff, but so I've never grown pumpkin either. I don't know. I'm not against it. I've got plenty of land. I could, put some pumpkin out there if I wanted to, but I don't think I'd put the effort into taking care of it. So I'm not sure how well it would do. Is that Sitha? Sitha? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. Sorry if I'm not. Says, hello, Chris. Thanks for your time and sharing your experience. Can 4-week-old switch to 24% pellets? 4-week-old quail or 4-week-old rabbits? I'm not sure what you're asking me. Let's answer it both ways. If we're talking about, well, it's got to be quail. You wouldn't feed 24% pellets to your rabbits. So you're talking, okay, so now it makes me wonder, are you talking from crumble to pellet feed, or are you talking a change in protein percentage? If you're talking about like changing the protein percentage from like a higher protein to a 24% protein at 4 weeks, it's okay. It's probably not ideal. They really do need the higher protein up through about 8 weeks old, but it'll be fine. They'll do okay on it. It's not that big of a deal. If you're talking about switching from a crumble to a pellet, I'm not sure. I've never used a pellet. I've always used a crumble with my birds, but I don't think pellets are going to be the best thing for them either, because they're just a little bit harder to digest, a little bit harder. They don't have teeth to crunch it up. So I think I would stick with a crumble feed if it were me. But, try it out and see how it works. And who knows, it's probably going to be okay. I don't know if I got that answered for you exactly, but hopefully I did. Wow, we got a lot of comments in here I haven't gotten to yet. All right. Dusty Miller says, do you think we can raise quail outside in the Sioux Falls, South Dakota area? I don't see why not. I mean, yeah, you should. I've got people all over the country that watch, all over the world, honestly, that watch, and they all raise quail outside. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to. I'm not sure what would be different about Sioux Falls, South Dakota, as opposed to anywhere else. Just maybe you're worried about it getting too cold there. I'm trying to think of where South Dakota is exactly. My geography is not the best. But I think that's up in the upper northwest. So it probably gets pretty cold there. But yeah, you're going to do fine with, they're going to do fine outside. The only thing you're going to have to worry about is like when you're hatching babies out, especially in the wintertime when it's really cold. You have to keep them inside a little bit longer before you move them outside to about 4 or 5 weeks old. But they're going to be fine. Give them some way to get out of the wind. You don't have to worry about it. Jasmine says, agreed. Supplemental food and treats. Thanks, Chris. I'm going to farm black soldier fly larvae this spring to fall as a high protein, high calcium treat. Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. I have black soldier fly larvae that just come to the manure pile. I mean, they're just there. So they are the best thing ever because they are composting machines. I mean, those things that I don't have to clean out underneath the quail hutches hardly ever. I do it like maybe once a year. And then even then I get like maybe a wheelbarrow full of manure out from both of the quail hutches. It kind of builds up a little bit in the wintertime, but when the black soldier flies move in the spring and summer, man, they keep that stuff under control. They compost it down to nothing in no time. So they are fantastic. I do scoop some out every once in a while and give them back to the birds to eat. But yeah, they're great. Witch Doctor says, hey guys, saying hi from Las Vegas. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Where we at here? Katrina says, let's see. My quail love comfrey leaves. Yeah, I bet they do. Comfreys are great, a great fodder to be able to feed to your animals. It's not something you want to feed as their primary diet, but it makes a great animal feed to supplement your animals with. It's also, if you guys don't know about comfrey, it's also known to really be a very good healing plant for things like bruises and even broken bones. It's supposed to be great for that kind of stuff. Not necessarily, I mean, let's see. Technically, you can eat the stuff. There is some concern that it may cause cancer and some of those kinds of things. I'm not sure that the studies, I don't know that I believe that. I think it's probably okay. But what I'm talking about just as a compress type plant, like you get a bruise on your arm and you wrap it with a piece of comfrey, it really helps to relieve that and heal that up pretty quick. Ed says, whoops, I'm late. That's all right. We don't take attendance here. You know that. Good to see you, Ed. Thanks for joining. I'm going to skip a couple of these where you guys are talking to each other. I'm way behind, aren't I? I see somebody responding to the leggy comment I made earlier. All right. Sam says, hey, I just got quail today, 6 males and 6 females. So nervous. Yeah, well, the one thing I would say, I mean, congratulations, first of all, on getting your quail. You have way too many males for that number of females, though. If you have a 1-to-1 ratio, if you have enough light, 14 hours a day of light, the roosters start crowing, the hens start laying eggs, you're going to end up with your hens being overbred. You only need 1 rooster for every 4 to 5 hens. So at the most with 6, I'd keep 2 roosters. And the others, move them out to their own pad, get some more hens to go with them, something like that. But you don't want to leave all 6 of those roosters in with all 6 of those hens because you're going to end up with hens that have no feathers on the back of their head. They're going to be stripped completely bald from breeding behavior. It's just too many. You may end up with some aggression problems like that too. But other than that, you should do just fine. So congratulations on your new birds. All right, Katrina says, I'll be starting some seeds this weekend. Have to decide what I'm planting. Oh my gosh, where do you live that you can start seeds already? It's like, well, our growing season doesn't start, like tomatoes don't go in the ground till like Mother's Day. So, it's going to be 6 weeks before then where I start planting seeds, which puts us like late February, mid to late February. Kathleen wants to know if I found rabbits to buy. No, I have not yet. I'm still kind of looking. I may have to end up just kind of resorting to some other things, but I'm holding out a little bit looking for specifically pedigree to muck rabbits. And it's just been so much going on lately that I haven't had time to really look outside of like an hour and a half or so from my local area. And there's just nothing here right now. So, I mean, I found plenty of rabbits. I just haven't found the ones I'm really looking for yet. I don't know what we're talking about, but Verna's asking how they taste raw to Katrina. I don't know what you guys were talking about. I'll skip that one. Bass is such a cool last name, says Psycho Ward. It is a cool last name. You're right. You guys want to hear something funny? You say bass, and take it out of context always makes me think of fish because I'm a fisherman and I fish for bass. So every time somebody talks about like somebody having a baby or whatever, they're always talking about like the size, it's 23 inches, 9 pounds, 2 ounces, or, whatever. And I'm always like, man, that'd be a nice bass. That's every time I think of that. Jasmine says, Chris, what about the full spectrum LED options for the shop lights? I'm not familiar with full spectrum LED options for the shop lights. I know you can get LED shop lights, and I haven't tried them out. Let me do a quick search here. It looks like there's some pretty cheap LED shop lights. I don't know what spectrums they offer, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with LED if you can find LEDs that are going to be big enough. Yeah, but the same thing's going to apply with just a standard LED shop light. Is you're going to want it really close to your plants. Even if you get full spectrum, it's really about, there's two things with the lighting that make that determine how close or how far away you can get it from your plants. One is the lumens, of course, or not the lumens. I'm sorry. That's the second part. One is the spectrum, and that doesn't determine necessarily how close or how far away you can get it. That's just if it's going to give the right kind of light for your plants to grow. And most plants are going to thrive in 6,500 Kelvin. That's like daylight spectrum. More a little bit on the cool side, a little bit on the bluish side. But that's going to be fine for all your seedlings. Now, if you want to grow plants up to like flowering, producing fruit like tomatoes and peppers and those kinds of things, you need other spectrums in there as well. That's a little bit more complex. But for starting seeds that you're going to be transplanting outside, that's going to work just fine. The other part of a light is how many lumens it puts out. And that's going to really determine how far, that's how bright the light is, how far away from your plants you can have it. And I don't have the specifics on how many lumens, whatever, but like with these shop lights, these are, here, I'll look real quick. We'll see how many lumens they put out. It's about 2,900 lumens per bulb. So that kind of gives you an idea. You need much, much brighter than that. Probably like 5-6 times brighter than that before you can move the lights to, where they're feet away from your plants instead of inches. But anyway, hopefully we got that addressed. Whiskey Tango Farms is here. It says, good evening, Chris and everyone else. Sorry I'm late. Hey, how are things going? We have a 50-degree difference in temperature from yesterday morning to this morning. Felt like wearing shorts. Yeah, we were kind of the same way. It was much warm. Well, this morning it wasn't a 50-degree difference. Yesterday morning, I think it was 18 degrees when I went out, and it stayed below freezing all day. Today, it was like 23 or 24 degrees. Now, I think it was higher than that, 25 or 26 degrees. And then it got up to almost 40. But yeah, I can feel that. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining. Let's see. I'm gonna skip a couple things. Psycho War says, I love bass fishing. Yeah, I do too. Chris says, I had to rebreed my rabbit. She wasn't bred the first time. She made a squealing noise each time he fell off. Is that normal? Well, it's not necessarily normal, but it's not really abnormal. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Glenn says you can tune a piano, but you can't tune a fish. Yep, that's true. Sam says, yes, they will be in separate cages, one for meat and another for eggs. If we like it, then we will breed later. Okay, so here's one thing. I think we're talking about the birds. You were saying 6 quail you got today. Wasn't that you? Yep, that was you. That was you. Okay. Here's what I would suggest, and I understand your theory about this. Keep them in separate cages, and if you want to, you can combine them later to breed. But the problem you're going to run into is if you keep them in separate cages and then go to combine them later, they're going to fight. You're going to have some problems with aggression because they're just new birds being introduced to each other, and that almost always happens. So I think it would be best to go ahead and put 1 or 2 males in with your hens now. There's no reason you can't let them just go ahead and breed, even if you don't plan on incubating the eggs. There's nothing wrong with fertile eggs. If they're fertilizing the eggs and you still want, there's nothing wrong with eating fertile eggs. Let's put it that way. If you're collecting the eggs and putting them in the refrigerator, they're not developing at all. So you're fine to go ahead and continue eating them. And I would go that route rather than trying to combine birds at a later time and having to deal with the aggression that you're going to have problems with. It's probably a lot easier to just do that now. That would be my suggestion, but you can do it however you want to. Let's see. Verna says CDs or aluminum pie plates to take care of the hawk problem. That's what we were talking about. Sam wants to know who all is going to QuailCon this year. I should be there. Jasmine's laughing at the dad jokes. I'm pretty good at the dad jokes, but that wasn't mine. Jasmine says, I am Sam. Oh, I am, comma, Sam. So, yeah, Jasmine's going to QuailCon. I should be there. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't be. Zach has invited me to be a speaker this year, so I'm going to be there to speak again like I did last year. I'll try to come up with a different topic to talk on. And then, in fact, you guys can let me know what you wanted me to talk about at QuailCon if you want. Those of you guys are going to be there, give me some suggestions on topics, whatever I should plan to have a speech on. And so, barring any kind of catastrophe between now and then, I'll be there. Witch Doctor's planning on being there. Sam's planning on being there. Good. It's always a good time getting to meet you guys in person, and I really enjoy that. What I will say is you'll have to come up to me and say hi to me because I won't know who you are. All I see is a little icon on a screen here, but you'll have to come up. I'm pretty good with faces. I'm not so good with names, so forgive me if I forget your name, but I will always be happy to say hi, always be happy to sit down and have a talk with you guys. Whiskey Tango says, we don't have CDs anymore. I donated about 500 of them to the kids' school for the school projects they asked for. They asked for CDs, but I don't think they were expecting that many. Yeah, probably not. Katrina says, Cherokee Purple's my favorite. I didn't like them. They weren't that great. I've grown them once or twice, a couple of times, and they were just okay. I didn't think they were all that good. Anyway, Whiskey Tango Farm says, Chris, what are you planning for the garden this year? Anything new this year? Probably not much new. I don't know, honestly. There'll be the old standbys. I'll grow paste tomatoes for canning, a couple of beefsteak type tomatoes. I haven't decided which kind I'm going to grow this year. I may grow a different one than I normally have because there was one in Baker Creek catalog that was it's an heirloom beefsteak tomato, like a slicer. And it was, I can't remember the name of it, but who it said it was developed by was somebody named Middleton, and that's my wife's maiden name. So we figured, well, let's grow these tomatoes. They're family heirloom tomatoes, right? Well, I doubt they're related, but who knows? Maybe. But still, we just thought that was a cool thing, so we're going to try to grow those this year. I think I'll probably do Amish paste for the paste tomatoes. That's my favorite. I'll grow okra. I have to have some pickled okra, so I'll grow okra. Cucumbers, probably a small batch of those. Green beans, I really like fresh green beans from the garden. If I can get them in early enough, peas. Early peas are always really good. Summer squash, zucchini, those are staples, always got to be in there. I'm not sure what else. That's all I planned out so far. All right, Sitha says, I tied a bunch of Christmas lights together in one spot instead of spreading it around the wire cage. Will that work, or does it need to spread out the whole cage? No, that should work. I mean, if it lights up the cage well enough that you could read by it, it's plenty of light. It should work just fine. Jasmine says, I love Cherokee Purple tomorrow. Oh, tomatoes. I love Cherokee Purple tomatoes. Yeah, who knows? Maybe, I don't know. I just didn't think they were all that great. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm the weirdo. Or maybe maybe they weren't that healthy at plants, so they didn't produce real flavorful fruit. Maybe I'll try them again. Everybody just loves them, and I don't know. I've just kind of been like, they were all right. Katrina says, I make tomato sauce out of regular tomatoes. No need for paste tomatoes. Take a while longer to cook down, but it has tons of flavor. Yeah, I would agree. I don't typically make tomato sauce, though. What I do is I just can tomatoes. So whenever I want, whenever I open them up, I can make whatever I want with them, whether it's sauce or use them at, stew them or whatever. Yeah, I think those paste tomatoes have lots of flavor too. The benefit to the paste tomatoes to me is they have less seeds. So you're not dealing with a ton of seeds in the tomatoes when you can them. Seeds don't bother me in fresh tomatoes, like to slice one up and put it on a sandwich or just to eat it, like, sliced up with some salt and pepper. It's fantastic. But the seeds don't bother me that way. But when they're canned, the seeds do bother me. All right, where are we at here? How are we doing? We got 10 minutes left. John says, I waited 20 minutes for you and skipped my question. Oh, no, I skipped your question. I didn't mean to, John. Where was it? Did I miss it? He says, peace out, like he probably left. He was screaming. He was upset. But if I missed something, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I do my best to get to all of them. But sorry about that. Witch Doctor says, last summer it was so hot, it even killed my wild lettuce, which is a weed pretty much grows in any environment. Yeah, but lettuce tends, well, you said wild lettuce. I'm not really familiar with wild lettuce. I will tell you, regular lettuce, though, is typically regular lettuce is typically very heat sensitive. It grows better in cool seasons. Heat wants to make it, makes it want to bolt. And then once it bolts, of course, it's done and it dies at that point. But, I don't know about your wild lettuce. Jeff says, I'll be starting 600 tomatoes in a month and a half. 600, boy, that's a bunch. All right. Ro from California, good to see you. And a bunch of people still talking about Cherokee Purple. I don't know. Maybe you guys haven't had a really good tomato before. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Verna says, I was taught that Groundhog Day is a great day to start seedlings. Yeah, my birthday is in February. It's February 8th, so it's kind of always been February. That's right, like 6 days after Groundhog Day. So that's always been kind of the day I thought about starting seeds. But what I find is that I like to start my tomatoes and peppers and things a little bit later than that because they get way too big if I don't. I'm not planting them out till Mother's Day. So most of the time, my birthday, Groundhog's Day, that day, right? That's like 6 weeks before our last frost date. And that's a little bit early. I mean, our last frost date's like April 15th, but it's still not usually warm enough until at least Mother's Day to plant them out. And I just don't find any benefit to getting them. They tend to get root bound. I'm having to deal with, finding great big pots to plant them into. I just don't find any reason to do it any sooner. Katrina says, I don't see a question from John, so I don't think you missed him. I didn't either. But I may have. Who knows? I'm sorry. But, hey, I do my best to get to all of them. If I miss one every once in a while, give me a break. I mean, it's a couple of hundred questions coming in here. I'm doing the best I can, or comments coming in. Katrina says, grow pumpkins and eat the flowers. I've never eaten pumpkin flowers. I have had squash flowers, though, fried squash flowers. They're not bad. It'd take a whole lot of them to make a meal, but they're all right. Let's see, a couple people talking to each other. Verna says, Chris, I used to cut up cantaloupe and freeze it. You can use it in baking, just like bananas. I suppose you could, but I really like just regular. I'm sorry, I got distracted. I like just cantaloupe, just fresh cantaloupe. That's the way I like to eat it. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Maybe I'll try it sometime. I like banana bread just fine. But I'm not big on baked good, like breads and things like that. It's not every once in a while, like if I cook a loaf of banana bread, I probably won't eat more than maybe a quarter of it before the rest of it goes bad if it's just me. Because it's just not my favorite stuff. I mean, I like it, but a little bit goes a long ways for me. I don't even eat bread. Like I'm the guy that at Thanksgiving, if somebody else doesn't bring rolls or, there won't be any rolls. I just don't even think about bread. It's just not part of my normal diet. Katrina says, you can train pumpkin to trellis. Cattle panel is what I have used. I imagine you could, but if you're growing big pumpkins, you'd have to have I do, like when I grow cantaloupe, I trellis my cantaloupe. And I make little slings for it out of like t-shirt material or whatever to support the fruit. And it seems like pumpkin, you'd have to make an awful big sling to hold that to support the fruit on the vine. But who knows? Ed says, Chris, toss out some seed, and if it grows, then that's great. If not, but no big loss. Yeah, no kidding. I could probably toss it in the compost pile and it'd go crazy, wouldn't it? Oh my gosh. I just scrolled down and we're way down the list. I've got there's no way I'm going to get to everybody's comment. So if I don't get to yours, I apologize, guys. I got distracted early on or something. Let's see. CDN Gunworks says your videos have helped us so much in raising our quail to live outdoors here in Canada. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for watching them. Brady says pumpkins are great for all your animals. I highly recommend giving it a try. You have the land and the fertilizer to put in thousands of pounds of fodder. Yeah, you're right. I do. And you're right. Pumpkin is good for your animals. It's kind of a natural. Well, the pumpkin seed anyway is a natural dewormer. Just need a sturdier trellis. Somebody says that was Katrina. Let's see. Goo. I don't know how to say your name. Goo something. Says you can bury the stems of tomato plants. Yeah, you can. Yes, you can. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So you can bury, whenever I plant tomatoes, they always get planted very deep. So like that far up the stem, I mean, depending on how big the plant is, tomatoes will grow roots out of the stem if it's, buried underground. So yes, you can. I've seen methods of planting tomatoes sideways. So you plant them sideways, kind of bend the stem a little bit as you plant it, and then that grows roots all along that stem. I've seen that method before. Courtney says my quail eggs are hatching and 5 hatch out of 41 viable eggs that went into lockdown. Any suggestions? First time hatching, not sure why it stopped. Tempt at 99 to 100 and humidity at 64%. Well, I don't know how long ago these other 5 hatched, but if 5 of them hatched already, then if it's like been recent, like within the last couple of hours or whatever, just leave them in there. Wait until tomorrow. Give them at least 24. You can go 48 hours if you want to. They don't all hatch at the exact same time. It just takes a little bit of time. Now, if and one thing, you don't want to move the quail out of the incubator into a brooder box unless they're all dried out and completely fluffy. If they still look kind of wet or whatever, just leave the incubator closed. Try not to open it any more than you have to. If these birds hatched out like a day ago and you've already got them out of the incubator and into the brooder box, then give it a couple more days. It sounds like everything's right. Your humidity may be a little bit low, but it's not as big of a concern. If you end up having to open the incubator to get birds out or whatever, have some water handy to add to it to bump your humidity up a little bit. That might have a little bit of impact on it. Chances are there's probably some hot spots or cool spots in your incubator, though. And it's just going to take some of them a little bit longer to hatch. If they, I don't have time to go into the detail right now of like all the things that could go wrong with a hatch and what to look for and all, but give them some time. Well, okay, you're not saying they're hatching right now. You say they quit hatching, had 5 hatch out of 41 viable eggs. So I may have read that wrong. I'm sorry. That went into lockdown. So what you're saying is you ended with only 5 hatching. Okay, the first thing, a failed hatch, most of the time, the first thing to always look at, because it's almost always the problem, is the temperature of the incubator. It may say it was 99 to 100, but get some external thermometers. I always say get 2 of them. Make sure that you can calibrate those thermometers. Look up how to do that. I don't have time. We're about out of time here. I don't have time to just tell you how to do it. But look up how to calibrate those thermometers, calibrate them so you know they're accurate, and put them in your incubator when there's no eggs in it, and verify that it's actually reading the temperature correctly. And I say get 2 of them because then if you've got 1 thermometer in there and it says a different temperature than your incubator, you're kind of like, which one's correct? Don't know. But if you have 2 thermometers in there, then 2 of the 3, one of them being your incubator, are reading the exact same. You can pretty much bet that's one, especially if you calibrated the thermometers first. Chances are your incubator is probably running a little bit low. So it's probably, instead of 99, it may be 97 or 98 or, whatever. And once you know that, then you can adjust it up. So instead of, if it's actually 97 in there, then you probably want to bump it up to where it reads like 101 or 102 maybe on your incubator, and then it would actually be like 99 to 100, if that makes sense. That's most of the time the issue with a poor hatch rate, especially if you're using like one of the cheaper, when I say cheaper, they're still $150 incubators or whatever, but like a Little Giant, a farm, I'm looking up here because my incubator's up there. A Little Giant, a farm incubation or innovations, or even, what's it called? Hovabators, the styrofoam incubators, those are, in fact, any incubator out there, there's a good chance that it's off just a little bit. So it's a good idea to just double check it and verify that that's right. My guess is that's the biggest issue that you've probably had with them. I've got a whole series of videos on incubating and hatching eggs. So you can kind of go back and watch that if you need to. That'll give you tips. It doesn't really necessarily tell you how to troubleshoot it. I have done videos on how to troubleshoot hatch rates before, but my guess is that it's a temperature issue. Start there. If that's not it, I mean, definitely come back. Let me know. We'll do our best to try to help you figure out what the problem was. Yeah, Ed says black soldier fly larva will strip a dead bird in less than 12 hours. Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, and she says, yes, I have 2 others in the incubator. Okay, so we got a couple of going back and forth here. They're standard, not jumbo. Well, that shouldn't matter. Sorry, I'm looking for Courtney's. I'm skipping a lot of these. And then Courtney says, how far should I go up on humidity? During lockdown, you really want the humidity to be up to about 75 to 80%. Oh, look at that. I had another $2 super chat I missed. Dusty Miller says, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Well, thank you for the $2 super chat. Okay, Courtney. So you want to go up to like 75 to 80%, somewhere right around in there. Try not to get it over 85% because then you can, that's a little high and you can end up with birds drowning from high humidity. But 75 to 80% is right about the right range. Don't stress about it too much if it's 83% or if it's, 74% or something like that. But try to get it up a little bit in that range. That'll help the birds hatch a little bit better. But again, my guess is it's probably a temperature issue. So I would start with checking that. Wait till your hatch is completely done and then, check it afterwards when there's no birds in there. All right, guys, oh my goodness, there's so many comments in here. I'm sorry if I did not get to your comment. Anybody that knows me knows I like to talk, and I will sit here and talk all night long, but it is past 8 o'clock here, and I need to get off here, go spend some time with my wife before it is time for us to go to bed, get up, and go to work tomorrow. So thank you all for joining me tonight. Thank you so much for I got distracted by another comment. Sorry. Thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you so much for always watching the videos, always hanging out with me a little bit on a Thursday evening. I appreciate it so much. And hopefully we see lots of you guys at QuailCon this year, get to meet in person. I guess that's it. So as always, God bless, and we will see you guys next week. Take care.